And that's basically to make a point of power. Either you come to our side or we're going to kill you.
But authorities say Barbie is involved in drug smuggling, money laundering, and against rival gang members, murder.
This week's morbid find of a severed leg dangling off a bridge is just among a string of recent incidents involving body parts, all suspected to be the work of the new Familia Michoacana, among the most ruthless of Mexican cartels.
Since the early 2000s, cartel violence and drug wars have had a deadly impact on Mexico. The explosive rivalry and competition for superiority have made these criminal organizations even more ruthless. Their gruesome tactics and brutality have reached a new level as these cartels adapted to the concept of broadcasting their violent activities, not only on the news, but also on video-sharing platforms like YouTube. The heat of the rivalry escalated in the early 2010s when online social sites became the perfect medium to transmit torture and execution videos. Eventually, it became a ritual within the cartel world to publish violent content for the world to see. With each video, their approach becomes increasingly aggressive. The fate of Mexico has been filled with bloodshed and violence for a couple of decades. The violence has been brought about by none other than the major drug cartels.
The Mexican cartels are the biggest suppliers of illegal drugs into the United States. In Tijuana alone, there are 3 cartels fighting for power: the Sinaloa cartel, Jalisco New Generation, and the Tijuana cartel. Although there are many other cartels in Mexico, these 3, plus another known as the Gulf Cartel, are the most powerful in the country.
Not only do they target the government and civilians, but they target each other as well. The common name cartel is used by law enforcement to categorize criminal organizations, but there are many cartels stationed all over the country. Most of the well-known cartels originated from the Guadalajara cartel, which was a drug trafficking organization founded in the 1980s.
Or was it actually the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, inventing the word cartel as a way to classify these groups? Now, whether or not it was the DEA who first coined this phrase, it was very useful to the DEA, because if you look at the laws, the conspiracy to traffic drugs laws, the racketeering laws, you need to have an organization.
After the Guadalajara cartel's primary leaders were arrested and extradited to the United States, the cartel split into multiple sectors, forming their own organizations under new leadership. So major drug organizations like the Sinaloa, Gulf, Tijuana, and Juarez are like siblings who have gone their separate ways. Over the years, these cartels have guarded their own smuggling routes and corridors, but eventually, it was no longer enough. The greed to expand was too much, so they started to conquer other cartels' territory, thus creating the drug war. All of this is the result of the drug trade. Everyone wants the profit that comes with the narco-trafficking business, but no matter how much they make, it's never enough. Therefore, they fight, form alliances, break up, and fight again. It's a never-ending cycle. Communities throughout Mexico suffer because of these battles and turf wars. It's unbelievable how far things have escalated since the early 2000s. It's no surprise that these cartels are violent and terrorizing, but ultimately, they're always willing to take it a step further, and this is how they do it. In 2005, the first video displaying the behind-the-scenes brutal punishments and torturing of rival gang members by Barbie, a former drug lord of the Beltran-Leyva cartel, was obtained by the Dallas Morning News.
Police say you can hear Barbie's voice interrogating these men just before they're executed.
The content of the video was simply inhuman. You have Edgar Valdez Villarreal, also known as Barbie, torturing and killing members of the Los Zetas gang. Of course, the purpose of leaking the video and allowing it to be broadcast on the news was a warning tactic. Whoever recorded the video wanted others to see it. At the time this video was released, Barbie was still working for the Sinaloa cartel, which was engaged in a war with the Gulf cartel. The two were fighting over the leadership of Nuevo Laredo in Tamaulipas.
Now, the border between Tijuana and San Diego is one of the busiest crossing points. It's been at the center of trafficking for decades.
At the time, the Sinaloa cartel was considered a growing force in the criminal underworld. By then, the Gulf cartel had the help of Los Zetas, the military wing of the cartel, known for its great combat skills and brutal tactics. The Zetas managed to get Sinaloa to back up for a few years until they split from the Gulf Cartel in 2010. The intense battles and retaliations between the two cartels created much destruction and many casualties. For instance, the torture video that Barbie made was a result of his brother being murdered by the rival cartel. Barbie wanted to use the news as an opportunity to send a message to all their rivals, intimidating them with death and consequences if they ever crossed the cartel. Unfortunately, this video triggered a chain reaction of violence. After the torture video created by Barbie was released, other cartels and gangs began adopting this method of broadcasting executions. It was said that Barbie might have been the pioneer of publicizing executions in the cartel world. Barbie even took it an extra step by sending the graphic footage to other newspaper companies, hoping to take advantage of the media to spread his infamous reputation. For an inventor, his inventions served a lethal purpose. More footage of punishments and killings of cartel members began to surface on the internet. It was like an early version of the modern-day trend, except it was much more deadly and violent. You had all these criminal organizations challenging and competing with each other to see who could create a more savage form of execution. And no, they weren't afraid of consequences, because there were none. These cartel members were rubbing it in the face of the public and law enforcement, implying they could kill anyone, anywhere, and no one could do anything about it. Keep in mind that these criminal organizations are powerful enough to challenge the Mexican military. They have their own armed force and elaborate weaponry, so they're constantly, openly challenging the law. Only the cartels could challenge others, but not the other way around. And in some ways, that is true, because even law enforcement couldn't stop them from carrying out these deadly deeds, or else there wouldn't be gangs or cartels. So these people were free to produce and star in their short execution films without any intervention or consequences. It's unbelievable how this trend caught fire so quickly, considering the lack of a virtual socializing platform in the early 2000s. The fact that they didn't have TikTok during this time but still managed to make something go viral is beyond imagination. It could also mean that these cartels were closely observing one another. Almost no one had utilized the tactic of broadcasting executions except during warfare or terrorist operations, which is most likely for the best. As you may have already guessed, in the next few years, videos of vicious torture and executions began making their appearance online. Though it wasn't much compared to the present day, there was still a considerable amount of graphic footage. And guess where they published these horrifying videos? Right here, on YouTube. The earlier version of the video sharing platform wasn't as secure and restricted. The guidelines were a bit more lenient, making it easier for criminals to get away with such things. Though this was a popular propaganda tool, not all cartels utilized it. Only some major gangs like the Gulf, Los Zetas, and Sinaloa. In 2007, there was a video published on YouTube titled, "Do Something for Your Country, Kill a Zeta." And that's basically what happened. The content of the video was graphic and disturbing. A member of the Zetas gang was captured by the Sinaloa cartel and was tortured and killed on tape. Of course, this wasn't the only case. More and more videos were published on social platforms. Facebook was considered a prominent space for cartels to upload their gruesome content as well. After a few years, the publicizing of execution videos refused to die down. Instead, it kept getting more popular, and more crime organizations started adopting this method. The reason was that the internet was becoming more accessible and social media was booming around this time. Therefore, it got easier to draw people's attention to this content.
Su contenido eran amenazas de igual forma en contra de las autoridades del gobierno del estado.
In the early 2010s, the recorded videos morphed into a different phenomenon, creating a new threat of narco websites. Journalists would create their own uncensored websites, documenting and updating the public about the narco world and operation. Websites like Blog del Narco are citizen journalism-run news websites that cover the happenings of the Mexican drug war that are not reported by the government. The website was founded in 2010 and is still running today. These journalists would upload ongoing issues within the drug world, graphic content, and reports of cartel activities. People could literally go to these websites to get news about the narco world. It's graphic, but informative. It's basically a self-made news website that isn't influenced by major news broadcasting media. These websites displayed a lot of gruesome content all in one place, and they quickly caught the attention of the media. Controversy emerged from the public. Many people wanted the government to ban these websites, but there were a large number of supporters of these independent news platforms as well. But that's not the only thing they should be worried about. These people should be concerned for the well-being of these journalists. Running a website that reports the daily lives of narcos can be a risky thing to do, because even though drug cartels aren't afraid of propaganda, they're adamant about controlling the source. It's all about being in control. Reporting and documenting cartel activities without their permission could be a bad move.
Tonight, more bloodshed in Mexico. Another journalist killed this week in the country. 5 reporters have now been killed there less than 2 months into the new year.
Being a journalist in Mexico could be a dangerous gig, because when a journalist reports something about a cartel, and they don't like it, they don't just get upset and turn off their TV. They will kill any journalist who uncovers things they don't want people to know.
Ser periodista en México es moverse en un campo minado, ¿no? Es que tú sepas en tu contexto con quiénes puedes hacer y qué preguntas y hasta dónde puedes llegar si quieres sobrevivir.
In simple terms, cartels and journalists don't get along well, and it usually ends in a bloodbath. All of the factors we just listed lead to one result. The practice of recording and publicizing torture and execution videos will never be stopped or diminished. You would think that every trend on the internet would come and go, but not this one. This brutal ritual has only gotten worse as social media platforms become popularized, which means more chances to expose the public to their barbaric ways. If you log on to any social media account right now and type in the keywords cartel brutal torture, hundreds or even thousands of content items will pop up on your screen. It's not a few times a year, monthly, or weekly anymore. It's an everyday occurrence. Every day there are some sort of new crime pictures or short videos appearing on the internet. These cartel members are really committing themselves to the content creator lifestyle.
So there's a whole new generation of narcos that are using the internet to brand themselves. The thing is, this culture went so viral that many of them are not actually part of any drug organization. It's a narco cosplay.
And it all boils down to one particular video that was created and posted by the Gulf Cartel, gaining the attention of the media. It's considered one of the most bone-chilling pieces of footage ever published by a crime organization. We mentioned that Los Zetas used to be a branch of the Gulf Cartel, but they broke free in 2010. Then, the two became rivals. The former alliance became something deadly. On June 28, 2012, a 3-minute video surfaced on Blog del Narco, previously known as Mundo Narco, depicting 5 men kneeling in front of the camera. They were being detained by the Gulf Cartel. There was no other way to interpret it. No doubt, the video was an execution scene. The 5 men who were kneeling had their hands tied behind their backs, and their chests were painted with the big letter Z. They were surrounded by other Gulf Cartel members wearing masks and wielding machetes. It's like something you would see in a medieval movie, but this is real life. The captured members were told by a hidden person behind the camera to state their names one by one. The hidden person also asked who sent them, and they collaboratively answered Z40. The alias Z40, or 40, belongs to Miguel Ángel Trevino Morales, the former leader of the Zetas. He used to be one of the most wanted men in Mexico and the United States, but was captured in 2013. After the captives stated their leader's name, the mysterious voice behind the camera spoke again in a threatening manner. He said,
"You find yourselves here because you came to f*** us. Pay attention, men. This is how all you filthy people are going to end."
Then they began the brutal process of killing and removing the heads of the 3 captives. All of it was recorded on camera. The screams filled with terror and the begs for mercy were deafening. Yet to the cartel members, it was like nothing. After the deed was done, the executioner presented their work, and the man behind the camera could be heard saying,
"Very good, very good."
The 2 other men weren't killed on camera, but you could hear their struggling in the end. The video was beyond gruesome and inhumane. It would haunt anyone's dreams for decades. It could never be covered on a major news channel. Unfortunately, these occurrences happen on a daily basis. If you visit Blog del Narco, there's an entire section dedicated to brutal killings, tortures, and execution videos. Some of it is beyond your worst nightmare. This act of killing and retaliation is a big circle in the criminal world. You have one cartel waging war on another. For example, the Gulf Cartel captures members of the rival cartel, tortures them, and ends their lives. Then, a few days later, the Los Zetas do something similar with their members. It's a never-ending circle of violence and bloodshed, which will only result in more death. Using online platforms for propaganda and intimidation is like the invention of the atomic bomb. A genius idea with devastating results. Hopefully, one day, these cartels, gangs, and criminal organizations will realize it's not worth it and stop this violence. At the end of the day, money and power can be attained more than once, but there's no do-over with life and death.